The day the college entrance exams ended, a surge of zombies erupted. Under my father's leadership, we transformed our countryside villa into a fortress for the apocalypse. However, the zombies seem to have grown smarter after repeated suppressions. For example, what on earth was that one doing? Grinning at us from atop the wall. Welcome to Panda Storyboard. Put on your headphones, get cozy, and settle in. Let's enjoy this story together. If you like it, don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like. Now, let's begin. As I walked out of the examination hall with the crowd, I saw my parents from afar. They were waving at me, smiling, their gray hair shining brightly under the sun. Just as I was about to run over to them, a commotion broke out in the crowd. A parent in the front suddenly fell to the ground, convulsing like he had epilepsy. Typical epilepsy, people around shouted instantly. People swarmed around, some pressed on his acupressure points, others called for an ambulance, and someone stuffed a piece of clothing into his mouth. Standing in the corridor, I had a clear view of the parent's face. He was pale, with veins bulging, looking like a corpse. Seconds later, he suddenly opened his eyes, blood red, and stared at the parent who was pressing his acupressure points, then lunged forward to bite. When people finally pulled him away, they discovered a large chunk of flesh had been bitten off the parent's face, and there were several deep scratches on his neck. Despite being restrained, the man kept chewing the flesh in his mouth, blood dripping down. Help! He's gone mad. He indeed had gone mad, as he quickly turned to attack the people around him with great strength and ferocity, knocking several to the ground. Screams erupted everywhere, and the scene descended into chaos. This disturbance naturally caught the attention of the school, which activated the emergency system. The school's large iron gates slammed shut. At that moment, I just reached the gates, looking desperately at my parents, just beyond reach. "Mom and Dad, find somewhere to hide, and don't get bitten by that lunatic," I shouted. My dad looked at me worriedly, urgently advising, "Those aren't just lunatics, son. Go back to the school and call me." After speaking, my dad pulled my mom away and ran through the gap in the gate. I saw a large group of blood-covered parents, furious and aggressive. Yes, a large group. Those who had just been bitten had all gone mad. A crowd of students gathered at the gate, some crying miserably because their parents were among the crazed. The principal repeatedly urged everyone through a loudspeaker to return to their classrooms and wait, but no one seemed to listen. Remembering my dad's instructions to call, I sprinted to the teacher's office and dialed my dad's number. It rang for a long time before he answered, breathless. "Son, listen to me. Those people have been infected with a strange virus. In simple terms, they've turned into zombies." My dad said the school was still relatively safe for the moment, but it was not a place to stay long. He instructed me to find a way to leave. Pass through the construction site outside the back door. Find a vehicle, and drive to our old home in the countryside where we would meet. I believed my dad. The situation indeed was as he described. I followed his instructions. Passing the school gate, I glanced through outside. It was a scene of bloodshed and screaming. Feeling helpless, I turned and walked away. The back door was locked, but that didn't stop me. I climbed over it, using a brick jutting out from the side. The construction site beyond the door was eerily quiet, with exposed rebar creating a sense of looming danger. Just to be safe, as I climbed over the back door, I grabbed a short piece of rebar to hold in my hand. Luckily, my journey across the site went smoothly. The zombies had not yet managed to enter this area. Upon reaching the parking lot, I was torn as I gazed upon the endless rows of colorful cars. Which one should I choose? The SUVs were robust and sturdy, but would consume more fuel, and running out of gas midway would be a hassle, especially since my rural hometown was 200 kilometers away. Sports cars looked flashy, and driving one was a dream of mine, but being so exposed would be like making myself a target. Pickup trucks were tough and powerful, but I feared picking up unwanted passengers, like a load of zombies on the way. After much indecision, I set my sights on an SUV in the second row. The car was new, and thankfully the doors were left unlocked, saving me the trouble of breaking a window. I dashed toward it, quickly checked it, then jumped into the driver's seat, swiftly locking the doors and windows. It was then I noticed the keys were still in the ignition, and there were bloodstains on the door. It seemed the owner had met with misfortune. As I was pondering this, I saw a blood-covered woman running down the passageway, followed by a dozen zombies. I quickly stepped on the gas and sped past them. The woman ran desperately, waving and screaming at me, but I had no intention of stopping. It wasn't that I was heartless, but she was already badly wounded and wouldn't last much longer. I sped away, avoiding dense crowds, and forgot to slow down while turning, causing the SUV to drift like a go-kart. My self-taught driving skills proved life-saving in that critical moment. As I sped past, I noticed several students outside the window, screaming and running, apparently infected. It was clear the school was no longer safe. I might have been among the first to leave City A, as there weren't many cars on the highway. Yet the farther I drove toward my hometown, the quieter the roads became, as if the previous bloodshed were merely an illusion. I managed to use the car owner's phone to call my dad and check on them. My dad's voice was anxious. "We're also on the road. Keep an eye on your surroundings. The zombie wave spreads fast." "Will they lock down the city?" I asked. He replied decisively, "They will, but not now. They don't dare make such a bold move yet." 2 hours later, I arrived at my rural home, which still seemed peaceful, oblivious to the chaos outside. My parents had already arrived, and after a brief discussion, we decided to quickly stock up on supplies. There was a large supermarket at the entrance to our village, stocked with all kinds of daily necessities. My dad and I drove 2 cars there and started frantically gathering supplies: rice, grains, instant foods, cooking oil, condiments, hygiene products, bottled water, everything we could think of. We loaded them into our cars until they were packed full, then headed home and prepared for a second trip. A cashier asked, "Are you stocking up?" My dad solemnly advised, "You should stock up too." The cashier laughed loudly, looking at us as if we were fools. But his laughter soon stopped. On TV, there were scenes of a city overrun with zombies. People in the supermarket gathered around, and an old lady screamed in horror, "There's no famine. Why are people eating each other?" A few quick-reacting individuals ran back and started grabbing goods. Others followed suit, and chaos ensued in the supermarket. My dad was right. The wave of zombies would spread quickly, and soon there wouldn't even be scraps left to grab. On the way home, my mom also had a fruitful time. She'd bought a lot of preserved foods like cured meats, sausages, potatoes, and sweet potatoes from the villagers nearby, which are easy to store. The items we hastily bought filled the entire yard. The house was left to us by my grandfather. It's a 2-story building, a bit dusty but very sturdy. The robust walls are made of big gray bricks. Located halfway up the hill, the house sits at the highest spot in the village, overlooking the entire area, which makes it easy to defend and hard to attack. "I'll go in and clean up first. This house hasn't been lived in for a while," my mom said, as she picked up a broom and headed inside. Soon after, she let out a loud shout, "Alexander, what are all these?" I rushed in and saw many items wrapped in tarps, laid out in the living room. My dad entered and smiled. "These are supplies I've been preparing for years. Food, weapons, medical supplies. I knew something like this might happen one day." My mom stared at him in shock. You knew about this?" "Not exactly," Dad said, "but I had a feeling. Call it a father's instinct or paranoia. Either way, we're prepared now." Over the next few days, we fortified our house. Dad had stockpiled not just food, but construction materials, weapons, and survival gear. We reinforced the walls, barricaded the windows, set up lookout points on the roof. The village slowly descended into chaos. We watched from our hilltop fortress as zombies appeared, as our neighbors fought and fled, as the world we knew crumbled. But we were safe, for now. Dad's preparation became our lifeline. He'd thought of everything: water purification tablets, solar panels, seeds for growing food, first aid supplies, even entertainment like books and board games. "Survival isn't just about staying alive," he told me. "It's about staying human." Weeks passed. The zombie outbreak intensified. We stayed inside, rationing our supplies, monitoring the radio for news. The government had established safe zones, survivor bases, scattered across the country. The nearest one was at Cold Moon Lake, about 200 kilometers away. "We should go," Dad said one night. "Our supplies won't last forever, and we don't know how long this will continue. At the base, there will be other survivors, resources, protection." Mom hesitated. "But it's dangerous out there." "It's dangerous everywhere," Dad replied, "but we have a better chance at the base." We prepared for the journey, loading the SUV with supplies, weapons, everything we'd need. Just as we were about to leave, we heard a knock at the door. It was our neighbor, Mrs. Chen, and her daughter Alice. They were starving, desperate. "Please, Mrs. Chen begged. We have nothing left. Just a little food, anything. Mom looked at Dad, who nodded. We let them in, gave them food and water. They cried with relief and gratitude. You can come with us, Dad offered. We're heading to Cold Moon Lake. There's a survivor base there. Mrs. Chen hesitated. I don't think I can make it. I'm too old, too weak. But Alice, please take Alice with you. Give her a chance. Alice protested, but Mrs. Chen was firm. You have your whole life ahead of you. I've lived mine. Go. Survive. Be happy. The next morning, we set out, the four of us crammed into the SUV, heading toward Cold Moon Lake. The journey was treacherous. Roads were blocked. Zombies everywhere. Danger at every turn. We encountered other survivors along the way. Some we helped, sharing food and water. Others we had to leave behind, knowing we couldn't save everyone without dooming ourselves. At one point, we stopped at a gas station to refuel. The place had been ransacked, but there was still gas in the underground tanks. As Dad pumped fuel, a group of armed men appeared, demanding our supplies. We don't want trouble, Dad said calmly. Take what you need, but leave us enough to survive. The leader sneered. I'll take what I want, old man. Before he could make a move, I raised the gun Dad had given me. Back off. We're not looking for a fight, but we will defend ourselves. The standoff lasted several tense minutes before the men finally backed down, grabbing some supplies, and leaving. My hands were shaking as I lowered the gun. You did good, son, Dad said. Sometimes survival means standing your ground. We continued our journey, each mile bringing new challenges. We fought off zombies, navigated blocked roads, avoided dangerous survivors. Alice proved tougher than she looked, helping us fight, keeping watch, never complaining. Finally, we could see Cold Moon Lake in the distance. We were so close, just a few more kilometers. Then disaster struck. A tire blew out. The car lurched, becoming difficult to control. We managed to pull over, but the damage was severe. We'll have to walk, Dad said, assessing the situation. But behind us, we could hear them, a massive horde of zombies, drawn by the noise of our damaged car. Hundreds, maybe thousands, closing in fast. Run, Dad shouted. We grabbed what we could and started running. But the zombies were faster, relentless. We could hear their snarls, feel their breath on our necks. Just when I thought we were done for, explosions erupted. Flames engulfed the zombie horde, incinerating them in seconds. Armed soldiers appeared, surrounding us, with guns raised. Who are you? One demanded. Survivors, Dad gasped, heading to the base at Cold Moon Lake. The soldier lowered his weapon. You made it. Welcome to the survivor base. I almost collapsed with relief. We'd survived. Against all odds, through zombies and bombings and desperate battles, we'd survived. They took us to the base, a massive compound protected by walls, armed guards, organized survivors. We went through quarantine, medical checks, interrogation. A month later, we were cleared to enter the public area. By then, the cleansing was nearly complete. All zombies were reduced to ashes in the bombings. After the zombie outbreak, only about 1% of the nation's population had survived. Sacrificing a few to save the majority was a reluctant strategy during those critical times. Reconstruction post-disaster was already on the agenda, and it wouldn't be long before we could leave the base. That thrilling college entrance exam, like countless zombies, would remain forever deep in our memories. Alice had lost her mother, but gained a new family, us. We looked out for each other, supported each other, survived together. And in that terrible new world, that was all that mattered. Looking back, I realized how lucky I'd been. Lucky to have a father who prepared for the worst. Lucky to have survived when so many hadn't. Lucky to have found purpose in protecting those I loved. The apocalypse had taken everything familiar and comfortable, but it had also revealed something important. That humanity, real humanity, isn't about what you have, but about what you're willing to give, willing to fight for, willing to die for. And as I stood on the roof of the base, looking out at the slowly rebuilding world, I knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together. Because that's what survivors do. We endure, we adapt, we overcome. The end was just the beginning.